Listen, it's preaching time. I want to call your attention to the book of Judges. I want to spend a few moments in the 15th chapter. Are you there? Amen. If you're not there, just simply say, hold on, wait a minute. We're going to begin reading at verse number 1. And I'm going to be reading from the English Standard Version. Here we find these words recorded. After some days at the time of wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife with a young goat. And he said, I will go in to my wife in the chamber, but her father would not allow him to go in. And her father said, I really thought that you utterly hated her, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please take her instead. And Samson said to them, this time I shall be innocent in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm. So Samson went, caught 300 foxes, took torches, and he turned them tail to tail and put a torch between each pair of tails. And when he had set fire to the torches, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and set fire to the stacked grain and the standing grain as well as the olive orchards. And then the Philistines said, who has done this? And they said, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistines came and burned her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, is this what you do? I swear I will be avenged on you. After that I will quit. And he struck them hip and thigh with a great blow. And he went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock of Etam. And then the Philistines came and encamped in Judah and made a raid on Lehi. And the men of Judah said, why have you come up against us? And they said, we've come to bind up Samson to do to him as he had did to us. And then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us? And he said to them, as they did to me, so have I done to them. Amen. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. I want to talk a little bit about the danger of fighting fire with fire. The danger of fighting fire with fire. Most of us have heard this idiomatic expression, fighting fire with fire, which means to use against our opponent the same methods he or she uses against us, or to deal with someone the same way they are dealing with us. And so when we are attacked forcibly, we attack back with either equal or greater force. This phrase refers to meeting aggression with aggression. So if somebody talks crazy to us, we talk even crazier back to them. If someone cusses at us, we turn around and cuss them out. When threatened, we issue a bigger threat. So you want to shoot my house, my car, my property up. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow your house, your car, and your property up. So they end up bringing the bullets and we end up bringing the bombs. So that what happens, this really suggests that you and I, we are willing to do whatever it takes to get back at someone for whatever they have done to us, using the same means and strategies they used against us. Now, since we're here in church, I know we really don't want our pew partner to think bad of us. And so we want to pretend like that every time somebody says something negative, somebody says something shady, somebody says something derogatory, somebody says something out of the way, that our response is, don't come for me, I didn't send for you. That when people are petty, that we always tell them, I'm going to pray for you. That when we have to face our haters and our aggravators and our irritators and our agitators, that we always simply tell them, child, you need Jesus. But the reality is that when we feel mistreated, when we feel like somebody has done us wrong, we don't always respond the right way. The fact of the matter is, it's not always hallelujah when we get hurt. It's not always praise the Lord when we feel pain. It's not always you stay blessed when we've had a bitter experience. That there are some scenes and scenarios in our lives where we want to express to them, either you come correct or you don't come at all. There are moments when we are being lied on that we want to throw some lies back. When we've been cheated on, we want to do some cheating. When others play dirty, we want to start slinging some mud ourselves. There is this article in the National Geographical that states scientific researchers have determined that there is a part of the brain that produces feelings of pleasure and satisfaction and is stimulated when we act in revenge. That's right. We find pleasure and satisfaction in getting even. It's really a part of our human nature. It's hardwired into us so that we have a hard time walking away and simply letting things go. We're kind of like my little daughter. We won't stop until we get the last lick in. And so one of the temptations of our Christian experience is to fight fire with fire. However, as we peep into this pericope that highlights another episode in the life of Samson, who really is this tragic hero of the Bible. He's a man of great strength and physical ability, but he had ethical weakness. And what we discover is that there really is a danger of fighting fire with fire. You do remember in chapter 14, Samson's life is now going from bad to worse. He's persisted in marrying an unbelieving Philistine woman based on lust at first sight. He's even did it against his parents' wishes and against the counsel of God's word. At the wedding feast, he now gives a proposition to the guests with a riddle and a wager. His plans are then sabotaged by his bride as she shares the secret answer to the riddle. Samson loses the bet. And after losing the bet, he ends up killing 30 men for their clothing to pay off his gambling debts. Here it is. He returns home after not having consummated the marriage. The marriage is considered annulled and void. And unknown to Samson, his wife has been now given to the best man. It becomes a chapter of multiplied mistakes. His whole life, in the words of Spurgeon, is a series of miracles and follies. Now, at least you and I become too hard on Samson. At least we look down on Samson. He really is one of the more identifiable and relatable personalities listed in Hebrews chapter 11 than that hall of faith, because he is like us and we are like him. His life is a sort of spiritual zigzag of being up and down, what Big Mama then would say, of rising over here and falling over there. And all of us have at least one chapter in our lives where we've had some serious struggles and we've made some major mistakes. We really could have easily played that role, Can't Get Right, in the movie Life. Because no matter how we tried, we just could not get things together. No matter how hard we tried, we just could not do things right. We just kept making the same mistakes over and over and over again. I know I'm not the only one. You and I, we really are the prime example of what it means that there is none righteous, no, not one. You and I, we are really evidence of what it means that our own righteousness is as filthy rags. You and I, we're living examples of all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. All of us got some bad chapters in our lives, some chapters where we've made many mistakes. I don't know what your chapter may be. Maybe it's a chapter when you gave the wrong person your number. Maybe it's a chapter when you now are suffering from some tattoo regret. Maybe it's that chapter that was filled with some one-night stands. Maybe it's that chapter when you were rolling on dubs while pubbing and clubbing. Maybe it's that chapter where you had some divorce or some divorces. Maybe it's that chapter where you were smoking and choking. But whatever our bad decisions may have been, that we kept making them on a regular and reoccurring basis. The good news is that as we sit in the sanctuary today, you and I, we have a testimony. And the testimony says that it's His grace and His mercy has brought us through. Am I the only one in here that knows something about God's grace? It's not that I have lived perfect. It's not that I've crossed every T and knotted every I. It's just that God has been giving me grace and mercy. Now, after a chapter like that, we find Samson in chapter 15. Don't you see him? He's making a return trip to Lover's Lane. He wants his wife back. Samson shows up. He wants to finish what he started. Samson still thinks he's married. And he had the kind of marriage in biblical times that was the type that where the wife remained with the parents and was periodically visited by the husband, who usually showed up with some gifts. He shows back up in Timnah singing, "Baby, I'm back." And he says, and not only, baby, am I back, he says, "Sweetheart, I brought you a goat." Now, women, I need your help right here, because doesn't that really sound like a man? We mess up, and then we come back bearing gifts. Samson is all about the romance now. Samson comes ready to match. And Samson, he really got some game, y'all, because he got a goat to prove it. You got to understand that in this era, and in this time frame, a goat was considered to be a delicacy. Ladies, everybody was not showing up with goats. Samson is the man. And maybe perhaps this would equate to our chocolates and our candies and our cards and sometimes our cars. Maybe it would equate to diamonds and pearls. Maybe it would equate to perfumes and flowers. All I know is that Samson is trying to get in where he fits in. He shows up and says, "Let me come in." Don't you see Samson? He's showing up saying, he said, I've got to fix up. I got to straighten up what I've messed up. and he goes to the house of his father. He goes there to rekindle the flames with his wife. And he shows up. And Samson, can I be honest with you? Samson, he does not have praying on his mind. Samson, he's about ready. If he was in our day and time, Samson, he's about ready to turn down the lights. Samson he's ready now for some Marvin Gaye and for some Luther Vandross and for some R. Kelly and for some Trey Songz. He's ready now for some Isley Brothers. He's ready now to get his groove on. That's why Samson shows back up. And listen, and when he shows back up, Samson gets some bad news. His daddy, his father-in-law rather says, her daddy says to him, says, Sam, when you left my daughter at the altar, when you walked out without consummating the marriage, I thought you hated my daughter. I thought you didn't love my daughter anymore. I thought you didn't want my daughter. And since I'd already took in the diary and used some of it to pay for the wedding, I decided that it was better to go ahead and give her to the best man. What? Oh. Wait. I see Samson's the mind, the wheels of his mind turning because he's saying, wait a minute. The woman that I picked out, the woman that I had my parents pay a dowry for, that woman that I had my eyes on. I spotted her, and she was all of that and then some. She was glamorous, gorgeous, beautiful. She was fine. She was sexy. I came, see, I gotta go. I came to get my woman. Daddy says, no, somebody else is already in them chambers. Y'all ain't with me. And then he tries to strike a deal and said, listen, I know I messed that up because, he don't want to return that money. So he said, listen, I got a baby girl. And if you thought that my oldest daughter was a looker, you got to see baby girl. Baby girl is a bona fide brick house. You'll enjoy watching her come and go. Y'all ain't with me. And he tries to make a deal with Samson, but Samson is not going to have it. Samson said, I'm not going to go forward. And he makes up his mind and said, now that I have been offended, now that I feel as if you've done me wrong, you think what I've been doing before is something. You might as well go and put on your seatbelt, and you might as well go and get a front row view, because what I'm about to do now is sure enough going to be low down and dirty. He decides that he wants to fight fire with fire. And one of the dangers of fighting fire with fire is that it corrupts our character with pride. Because what happens is Samson says that you can't do me like that. No, you don't know who you're messing with. I'm Samson. You don't know who I am. If you don't know who I am, you better ask somebody. And he begins to operate out of vanity and out of pride. And that's what happens when you and I decide that we want to fight fire with fire. And we decide that we want to take matters into our own hand. When we decide that we want revenge, it's because we think we are somebody. When I think I'm somebody, you're going to treat me like I am somebody. But you know that the Bible says to us that you got to be careful with pride, because pride comes before a fall. And I've learned that slippery place, or that high places are slippery places. And that when God elevates you, don't get prideful. Because listen, because what I discovered is that God may use a ladder to get you up there. But he knows how to use an escalator to get you down from there. Y'all. And we should not try to fight fire with fire based on who we think that we are. Now, little boy, I remember that song that had this little line in there that said, "Oh, Mr. Big Stuff, who do you think you are?" And that's the problem that Samson is wrestling with. He has some internal issues that he's dealing with, and it stems from pride. But you see, the Christian, we ought to be like Jesus. And Jesus is classified as meek and lowly. He wants us to take the humble way. That's why he says, "Humble yourself, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, and he will exalt you in due season." That ought to be good news for somebody. Because that means that I don't have to fight my way to the top. God got me covered. And whenever God gets ready, nobody can hinder and stop the hand of God. When God wants to do some lifting, when God wants to do some promoting, God can do it, and he doesn't have to ask anybody about it. It corrupts our character with pride. The danger fighting fire with fire is not only that it corrupts our character with pride, but the danger is that it creates a cycle of payback. Look what happens. Samson decides, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some foxes. Literally, they were really jackals, because jackals, they ran in packs. And he got these 300 jackals, and he made about 150 pairs. And he tied a fire stick to their tails and lit it. And they ran through the wheat. They ran through the olive gardens, and they began to burn up all of the crops. Now, so what happens is that this really is going to have an impact on the economy, because the text said this is during the wheat time, the time of wheat, which is usually somewhere between May and June. And so now he is starting to affect the economy. But can I tell you, this is really, in one phrase, this is really what Samson was thinking. Samson was thinking this. He says, "You took my honey, and now I'm going to take your money." Y'all. And listen, and you would think that that would be the end of the story. But no, we're talking about the Philistines. You know the Philistines, don't you? The Philistines are a cutthroat clan. The Philistines, they're not the kind to take this lying down. The Philistines, they're the ones who are willing to go hood. They're the ones that are willing to fight back. And they say, "Who did this?" And you know, there's always some snitches, don't you? And somebody snitches on Samson and says, "Well, Samson did it." And Samson, and now they go and they burn. Oh my God. They burn Samson's wife and her father alive. Scholars, commentators suggest that perhaps what they did was trap them or lock them in the house and then burn the house down on top of them. he was playing with fire. And somebody knows that whenever you play with fire, yeah, you end up getting burned. He creates a cycle of payback. And that's the place that many of us are. We're in a cycle of payback. You do something to me, I got to get even. Reminds me of one of the quotes that Muhammad Ali is quoted from making. He says, Muhammad Ali said, I'm a fighter. I believe in the eye for the eye business. I'm no cheek turner. I've got no respect for any man who won't hit back. He said, so you kill my dog, you better hide your cat. And that's really the mindset of many of us today. If you treat me bad, I'm going to turn around and treat you bad. And in many cases, I'm going to turn around and treat you worse. And so what happens is you create a cycle of payback. And so it's back and forth. It's this talk and that talk. It's this post and that post. It's this text and that text. It's this call and that call. It's this encounter and that encounter. And before you know it, you find yourself in a Hatfield and McCoy situation. And every time you see that individual and that person, y'all are in battle mode. Cycle of payback. But you know, Gandhi says that if we practice the eye for an eye principle, the only thing that will happen is that we'll make the whole world blind. The danger, fighting fire with fire, is it corrupts our character with pride. It creates a cycle of payback. Look what Samson says. Samson says, that's not going to be the end of the story. I'm not going to let y'all get away with that. He says that I got something that I've got to do. I made a miscalculation. I really didn't think that y'all were going to respond the way that you responded. But since you have responded, since you now taken life, he says, I am going to avenge you. And that's the last thing that I want to tell you, that he feels now that he has to defend his honor. And the danger of fighting fire with fire is that it centers our actions on conceited priorities. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What happens? Samson says, I'm going to avenge you. Samson, the Bible says, he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. That means that he totally and absolutely wiped them out. Piece by piece. Bit by bit. All because he was fighting fire with fire. My brothers and sisters, can I tell you that yes, he won. He killed them. He slaughtered them. He slayed them. He murdered them. He won. But it was all done in Samson's strength. It was all centered around what Samson was able to do. And I'm done. I want to tell you that yes, in life people are going to treat us bad. In life we're going to have some battles that we're going to have to fight. But we got to be careful because we don't want to be like that lady who went to the doctor. And when she went to the doctor said, I got some bad news for you. I'm afraid that you have contracted rabies. Doctor went out for a moment. When he came back in, the woman had a piece of paper out. She was writing. He said to her, what are you doing? Are you writing your last will and testament? The woman responded and said, no, I'm making a list of the people that I'm going to bite. this is not going to happen to me and it not affect somebody else. But my brothers and sisters, I want to tell you that while Samson makes up his mind and says, it's all about me, he says he does not mention the Lord one time. He does not mention the nation one time. He does not mention the injustices of the Philistines, not even one time. But all he says is, I will be avenged of you. And here is the main problem with revenge and fighting fire with fire, is that it has nothing to do with the Lord, but it has everything to do about us. But on my way to my seat, I want to remind somebody that God has a better way. That God does not want you and I to take matters into our own hand. But God says, I can handle whatever you're up against. And all my brothers and sisters, I just want to know, are you willing to trust God? God says, all you got to do is put it in my hands. And somebody knows we got the kind of God that can handle any situation. That's why we sing that song that says these words, I put it all in his hands. I put this and I put that. As a matter of fact, I put it all in his hands. And that's all I want to tell somebody is that if you want to deal with your enemies, if you want to deal with those who done you wrong, just take them to the Lord. The Bible says that we got to pray for those that despitefully use us. That means that all I've got to do is have a little talk with Jesus. Is there anybody in here that knows that prayer still works? And that you don't have to fight your own battles. You can just turn it over to the Lord. Is there anybody in here glad, like I'm glad, that you don't have to do it yourself? All you have to do is let God handle it. I know what they said. I know what they did. I know how they looked at you. But go on and put it in God's hand. And go on and do for them what God does for us. And that is, he gives us forgiveness full and free. I'm out of here now, but I'm thank God that he will forgive us because I'm not like some of y'all. Some of y'all can sit in the sanctuary and say, I got it all together. Some of y'all can sit in the sanctuary with a pseudo halo over your head and act like you never done anything wrong. But I know that I've had some shortcomings. But I'm so glad that I have a forgiving God. I'm so glad I've got a God who takes my sins and throws them into the sea of forgetfulness. I'm so glad I got the kind of God that won't hold it against me. Others may talk about it. Others may keep bringing it up. But the God I serve, he is a forgiving God. And can I tell you, that's what you and I need to do. We need to learn how to forgive one another. And when you learn how to forgive one another, can I tell you, it'll take the weight off of you. You'll feel freer and you'll feel better, and you'll be able to tell somebody, can't nobody do me like the Lord can. Am I in here by myself? Can't nobody do me like the Lord can. Well, what did he do for you? One Friday on a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. But on that old rugged cross, I saw the dearest and the best. Can I tell y'all what he did? He died. Anybody know he died? But I'm so glad that's not how the story ends. Tell your neighbor, 3 days later, 3 days later, 3 days later, y'all know what he did, don't you? He got up from the grave. With what kind of power? He got it with all power. I said all power, all power, all power in his hands. Didn't he do it? I said, didn't he do it? If you know he did, say yes. Say yes. Say yes.